Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Josie's Point of View, where we focus on human interest stories from the Carolinas and beyond. Today's Sunday, and it's October the 23rd, 2022. Happy Sunday to each of you, and thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new to my channel, I'd like to extend to you a warm welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. I hope you find the information here to be informative, and if you're a return viewer, by all means, thank you for coming back. You know, I always say the tide changes so frequently here on these YouTube streets, so you always have to acknowledge where your support comes from, and I want you to know I sincerely thank you for your support. Feel free to like and to share this video, and don't forget to subscribe. And our story today comes from Raleigh, North Carolina. Take a look at the headline. And it reads, 5-year-old beat to death by 10-year-old babysitter. I'll provide you with a summary here, and as always, I'll place links to a few of the full articles in the description box. And the focus of this story is this beautiful 5-year-old. Her name is Tamani Oden, who in July of this year was killed by her 10-year-old relative, 10-year-old, who happened to be babysitting her at the time of her death. And many people have not heard about this case. You see, there's been a lot of secrecy surrounding it, and that's because the suspected murderer, the alleged killer, is just 10 years old. And it was just this month, October, after a news story was about to be aired, that police finally announced they had made an arrest. So we're going to examine the information available from different sources, and we provide as much detail as possible, even though we cannot identify the suspect by name. And just to give you some background information, and you want to pay close attention so as not to get confused. It was reported that Kimani's mother, I don't think I could pronounce her first name, so I'll refer to her by her last name, which is Oliver. Earlier this summer, Oliver was in jail facing dozens of drug and felony weapons charges. So she was locked up and obviously unable to care for her young children because Kimani has a 2-year-old younger sister. So this is where it all gets confusing. Since Tamani's mother was in jail, Tamani's grandmother had custody of her, so her mother's mother had custody. Makes you wonder why the child was not given to her father, but based on what I read, that was a decision supported by Child Protective Services. Anyway, the grandmother took Tamani and her 2-year-old half-sister to a home in Raleigh, and that home was owned by this woman here, Shaletta Moore. They said her age is 50-something, who happened to be Tamani's half-sister's grandmother, okay? So the 2-year-old half-sister, her father was this lady's son. See what I mean? And this woman was not really related to Tamani by blood. But also living in that same house with the family was this man pictured here, and that's the brother of the woman, and he's a 62-year-old Anthony Moses. But there were also other children in the home, even though they were not identified by name. And so we move on with our story to the evening of July 11, 2022. 4 young children were left alone in the home. The oldest among them was a 10-year-old boy. The grandmother, it was reported, had gone to work. And by all means, the 10-year-old is the oldest, so he was the babysitter. Now, this may not have been an isolated arrangement for those children. They probably had been left alone in the past, allegedly, and that's because it was reported that the grandmother worked 3 jobs to support her family. And we don't know, but maybe this was just a babysitting arrangement, allegedly, and because she probably did not have any other choice. And with her working 3 jobs, she also probably did not have much time to spend with those children, allegedly. And they probably were burdened for her, allegedly, because she had to work. And they said she was working 3 jobs. The biggest question is whether the Department of Social Services were aware of this living arrangement. We don't know, but it definitely was a recipe for disaster because those little children were probably getting on that 10-year-old's nerves, and he did not really know how to handle them. But something went terribly wrong in the home that night. Something just got out of control because when the grandmother returned home from work, she found the badly beaten and lifeless body of Tamani, and EMS was called. They identified that she had multiple trauma to her head, and she was taken to UNC in Chapel Hill. Unfortunately, she died a few days later. The autopsy revealed the young child had been assaulted and left badly bruised with serious head trauma and a lacerated liver. Now, it was eventually revealed much later on that the 10-year-old did beat the little girl first with a belt and then with a broom. Oh boy. But the family say they never saw any signs that he, meaning the 10-year-old, would be capable of such violent actions. They believe he may have been jealous because the young girl had an upcoming birthday. And this is what really pisses me off. Maybe they need to focus on the fact that this child was not psychologically ready to be the babysitter of three young children. One was 5, one was 2, and I'm not sure the age of the third one. It was not mentioned. Maybe they need to focus on the fact that it was against the law for a 10-year-old to take on such adult responsibility instead of talking nonsense about him being jealous. This kid probably got on his last nerves, and he handled the situation the only way he knew how. And I have to tell you, as an adult of a certain age, I'm not babysitting no 5-year-old or no 2-year-old at the same time. It's not gonna happen because I know they're gonna drive me crazy. It's just not going to happen for me as an adult. Just imagine what that 10-year-old child, I'm not excusing his behavior, but just imagine what he had to go through. Maybe he just couldn't handle it. And people have a lot of questions for Child Protective Services, specifically about the way in which they make decisions, but CPS is not talking. Then you see, it's frustrating because you have a mother who's locked up and most likely awaiting trial. And instead of giving the child to the father, they give custody to the grandmother on the mother's side, who probably is not able to take care of the child, who takes the child and passes her along to a stranger, a woman who's already burdened and having to work 3 jobs to support her family. She's now handed this child who's not related to her, and in an effort to maintain some type of normalcy for her family, she has no choice. She has to go to work, and she probably can't afford a babysitter, so what she does, allegedly, is to appoint the largest child, the 10-year-old, to take care of the house as she goes, or take care of the children as she goes to work, allegedly. And this is just so unbelievable. And because this child has father and the family, his relatives have come forward to say they were willing and capable to care for this young child, but they were not given the chance. They say all of this could have been avoided because she has family, yet the young child was taken hours away and left with a stranger. The father's family say they blame social services for putting the young child in such a dangerous situation. The overall consensus is that had CPS made better decisions, Tamani would be alive today. And as I already mentioned, there's been a lot of secrecy surrounding this case, and particularly since the age of the suspect was a major factor for consideration because he's 10 years old. But one particular news reporter at WRAL has been working behind the scene, and just as the news station was about to air their findings from the 2-month investigation, the sheriff's office announced an arrest, and they announced that the 2 adults living in that home were charged in the death of 5-year-old Tamani Odom. Now, the 2 people arrested, of course, were Shanetta Moore, the grandmother of the youngest child, and Anthony Moses, who happens to be her brother. Moore is charged with a felony count of negligent child abuse resulting in serious injuries and 3 misdemeanor counts of child abuse. And Moses is charged with failing to report crimes against a juvenile. I'm a bit confused by that. I'm not really sure what it means, but from the charges, it appears they were not upfront in telling police everything they knew about the death of Tamani Odom. And of course, the relationship on both sides is severely fractured, and Tamani's family on her father's side is still heartbroken over her death, but all along they have said that the adults living in their home needed to be held accountable. So the arrest of Moore and Moses appear to be a move in the right direction. But there's a piece to the puzzle that's missing here. And we need answers. Why did social services give custody to the maternal grandmother when the father was alive? Why did that maternal grandmother then take 5-year-old Tamani Odom along with her 2-year-old sister and dump them off on a woman who lived several hours away and who was not related to Tamani by blood? That woman, Shaletta Moore, was the grandmother of the youngest child. So if the maternal grandmother could not care for them, what's the rationale for dumping them off on someone else who is working 3 jobs just to survive and who definitely could not give them the care they deserve? We need answers, and I'll reserve for the judgment until that maternal grandmother has had a chance to communicate her side of the story. Maybe she was ill and unable to care for the girls, then she should not have had custody. That's my opinion, it's my point of view, and nothing will ever change. But still, explanation is warranted. And there's a lesson in all of this, ladies and gentlemen, I want to be careful so as not to offend my viewers. But in this life, we have to make choices. And when you have children, particularly young children, you have to bear in mind how your day-to-day actions impact not only on yourself, but only on the loved ones you're leaving behind. And again, the final consensus is that had better decisions been made, Tamani Odom would still be alive today. Now, it was around October 11th or 12th when Moore and Moses were arrested, and it's unclear whether they have had their first court appearance, and so I don't have any information about bond. Also, it was reported that the 10-year-old, still shrouded in secrecy, has been removed from the home, and I say don't expect to hear anything about him either. But I'll try to stay on top of this case, and I'll bring you updates as they become available. And that's all I have for you right now. Feel free to leave me a comment below and let me know what you think about this video. And by all means, feel free to like it and to share it. And if you haven't done so already, I want to invite you to subscribe to my channel by clicking on that red subscribe button. It's on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And if you click on the bell that looks just like this one here, it's the notification bell. If you click on that notification bell, you'll be the first to know whenever a new video is uploaded. I thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.